Chapter 26. Wanting to know more about my mother's case and determining the best way to gain access to her files were two very different things. 24 hours after Dean had confirmed my impressions of our unsub, I was still empty-handed. Well. I heard Leah's voice but refused to turn around to watch her make an entrance. Instead, I focused on the grain of the kitchen table and the sandwich on my plate. "Somebody got a package in the mail," Leah sing-songed. "I took the liberty of opening it for you, and voila, a box within a box." She sat down next to me and placed a rectangular box in front of her on the table. A secret admirer, perhaps? There was an envelope on top of the box, and Leah picked it up and dangled the card in front of me. My name was written on the envelope, the letters evenly spaced with just a hint of curl to them, like the person who'd written them was torn between writing in cursive and writing in print. "You really are incredibly popular, aren't you?" Leah said. "It defies all logic. I assumed you were just the new shiny. In the program with so few students, it would be weird if a new girl didn't draw attention from the opposite sex, but neither Michael nor Dean would have a reason to mail you a package, so I can only infer that your, shall we say, appeal isn't limited to people who live here." I tuned Leah out and looked at the box. It was matte black with a perfectly fitted lid, a black ribbon that had been wrapped around the box twice, forming a cross shape on the front. In the center of the cross, the ribbon curled into a bow. "Did I hear my name?" Michael sauntered over to join us. "Don't you just hate it when you walk into a room and everybody's talking about you?" His eyes landed on the gift, and the smile on his face turned plastic and sharp. "Somebody's not fond of competition," Leah said, "and somebody is a lot more vulnerable than she lets on." Michael replied without missing a beat. "Your points?" That shut Leah up, temporarily. I looked back down at the box and ran my fingers along the edge of the ribbon. Silk. "You didn't send this?" I asked Michael, my voice catching in my throat. "No," Michael replied with a roll of his eyes. "I really didn't. There wasn't a person in my family who would have sent me a package wrapped in silk, and I couldn't think of anyone else who would want to send me a care package. Michael hadn't sent it. Dean wasn't the gift-giving type." I turned to Leah. "You sent this." "Not true." She stared at me for a second, then made a grab for the card. "Don't!" I started to say. My words fell on deaf ears. She plucked a plain white note card from the envelope and cleared her throat. "From me to you." Leah arched an eyebrow and tossed the card back on the table. "How romantic." A chill crawled up my spine. My breath felt hot in my lungs, but my hands were freezing cold. The package, the ribbon, the bow tied just so... Something isn't right. "Cassie?" Michael must have seen it on my face. He leaned towards me. I glanced at Leah, but for once she had nothing to say. Slowly, I brought my hand up to the ribbon. I pulled, and it fell away into a graceful black heap on the table. Now that I'd started, I couldn't stop. I hooked my fingers around the lid of the box. I pulled it off and set it gingerly on its side. White tissue paper, meticulously folded, lay inside. "What is it?" I ignored Leah's question. I reached into the box. I unwrapped the tissue paper, and then I screamed. Nestled in the tissue paper was a lock of red hair. Chapter 27. It took Briggs an hour to get to our house. It took him 5 seconds to get from the front door to the kitchen and the box. "Still think I'm jumping to conclusions when I say this case is related to my mother's?" I asked him, my voice shaky. He ignored me and barked out commands to the team of agents he had brought with him. "Bag the packaging, the box, the ribbon, the card, everything. If there's a speck of evidence on it, I want to know. Starman's tracked the box, how it was sent, where it was mailed from, who paid for it. Brooks, Vance, we need a DNA test on the hair. We need it yesterday. I don't care who you have to threaten in the lab to get it done. Rush it." Agent Locke crossed her arms over her chest and gave Briggs a look. To his credit, he lowered his voice to a more reasonable volume and pitch. "If this is our unsub, it changes everything. We have no evidence that he's ever made contact with a target prior to killing. This may be our chance to get ahead of him." "We don't know that this is our unsub," Agent Locke pointed out. "It's red hair. For all we know, it could be a prank." Her gaze drifted over to Leah the second she said the word prank. I whipped my head around to look at the natural liar too. Leah tossed her black hair over her shoulder. "This is a little beyond the pale, even for me, Agent Locke." Locke glanced at me. "Gotten into any arguments lately?" she asked. I opened my mouth, then glanced at Leah again. "Remind me never to ask you for a favor again." The venom in her tone when she said those words had been palpable. "Leah," Agent Briggs barely managed to get the words out around his clenched jaw. "Tell me again how you found the present." Leah's eyes flashed. "I went out to get the mail. There was a package with Cassie's name on it. I opened said package. Inside there was a box. I decided I wanted to see the look on Cassie's face when she opened said box. I brought it into the kitchen. Cassie opened it. The end." Briggs turned to Locke. If the DNA comes back as a match for one of our victims, you'll have to completely rework the profile. If it doesn't, he glanced back at Leah. Why does everyone keep looking at me? She snapped. I found the package, I did not send it. If the DNA on the hair doesn't come back as a match, maybe you should think about asking Cassie some questions. Me? I asked incredulously. You wanted in on this case, Leah retorted, and now the killer contacts you out of the blue. How lucky for you. I couldn't tell if Leah believed what she was saying or not. It didn't matter, because Briggs had already turned his diamond-hard gaze on me. Cassie didn't do this. I hadn't even realized that Dean was in the room until he spoke. Clearly, neither had the agents. Briggs actually jumped. Cassie's not the type to play games. Dean's voice brooked no doubts. The entire reason she wanted to work on this case is that she thinks it has something to do with her mother's murder. Why would she risk diverting manpower and resources away from the real investigation when she knows the killer is escalating? If this is a prank, it's a prank that's going to get someone killed. The knot in my chest loosened. I looked at Dean and suddenly I could breathe. Dean's right. Locke's voice sounded exactly like mine when I was working my way through a puzzle. If Cassie wanted in on this case, she'd just find a way to keep working on it on her own. I tried very hard not to look conspicuous, because that was exactly what I'd been trying to do. Cassie, did you or did you not drop this case when I told you to? Briggs took a step forward, invading my personal space. Have you done anything that might have drawn the killer's attention? I shook my head. No to both questions. Briggs' hands fell to his side again. He clenched his jaw. For the second time, Dean intervened. All Cassie did was give a copy of the case files to me. Every pair of eyes in the room turned to Dean. Normally, he stood and walked like someone who wanted to disappear into the woodwork, but today his shoulders were back, his jaw was set. I read the file. I profiled it, and I think Cassie's right. Dean leveled his gaze at Agent Briggs. These women are stand-ins, and I think there's a very real chance that the person they're standing in for is Cassie's mother. You've never even seen the Lorelei Hobbs case file, Briggs shot back. My mother's name hit me like a punch in the stomach. I've seen Cassie's mother's picture, Dean argued. I've seen the human hair that someone just sent Cassie as a gift. Briggs listened to every word Dean had to say, an intense look of concentration on his face. You're not authorized to work this case, he said finally. Dean shrugged. I know. You are not going to be working this case. I know. I'm going to pretend that we never had this conversation. Liar, Leah coughed. Briggs was not amused. You may leave the room, Leah. Leah clasped her hands together. Oh, Mother, may I? Dean made a choking sound. I wasn't entirely certain, but he may have been swallowing a laugh. Now, Leah. After a long moment and a glare aimed at the room as a whole, Leah twirled on her toes and stalked out of the room. Once he was sure Leah was gone, Agent Briggs turned to Agent Locke. Do you think this case is related to the Lorelei Hobbs case? I didn't flinch when he said my mother's name a second time. I concentrated on the fact that Leah was correct. Briggs had no intention of forgetting what Dean had told him. I think Cassie's right. I don't know that it matters whether the two cases are related or not, Locke answered finally. Cassie's hair is red. She's a bit younger than the other victims, but otherwise she fits the profile of this killer's victims, and more importantly, our unsub is escalating. If you assume the last victim's hair was dyed as a message, this means this guy is playing with us. And if he's playing with us, there's a sizable chance that he's watching us. Agent Locke rubbed the back of her hand warily over her brow. And if he's watching us, he could have followed us here. And if he followed us here, he could have seen Cassie. Briggs's phone rang before he could reply. By the time he hung up, I already knew what the next words out of his mouth were going to be. We've got another body. You watch the FBI agents scurrying around the crime scene like ants. This particular corpse is not your best work. You killed her last night, and already her screams have faded from your ears. Her face is still recognizable, more or less. You used scissors this time instead of your knife, but that's not the point. No, not this time. This time, the point is that the gift you sent sweet little Cassandra Hobbs was the real thing. The pathetic little slut lying lifeless on the pavement is just a piece of the plan. You abandoned her body at dawn, knowing that it wouldn't be discovered immediately. You'd hoped, prayed even, that Cassie would be there when the agents got the call. Did you scream when you opened the box, Cassie? Did you think about me? Am I the thought that keeps you up at night? There's so much you want to ask her, so much you want to tell her. The rest of the world will never understand. The FBI will never know the inner workings of your brain. They'll never know how close you are. But Cassie, she's going to know everything. The two of you are connected. Cassie is her mother's daughter, and that's as close as you're ever going to get. Chapter 28. 2 days later, the hair from the black box came back as a match for the unsub's latest victim. "I'll accept gifts in leeway of an apology," Leah told Agent Locke. "Any time now is fine." Locke didn't reply. The three of us, along with Briggs, Michael, and Dean, were in Briggs's study. Sloane was nowhere to be seen. "You sent me a piece of hair." I couldn't keep from talking about the killer in my head. Couldn't keep from thinking about the present and what it meant that the unsub had sent it to me. Was she screaming when you cut it off? Did you use the scissors to cut her afterwards? Was it even ever about her, or was it about me, about my mother? "Am I in danger?" I sounded remarkably calm, like my question was just a piece of the puzzle and not a matter of life and death, specifically mine. "What do you think?" Locke said. Briggs narrowed his eyes, like he couldn't believe she was using this as a teaching opportunity, but I answered the question anyway. "I think this unsub wants to kill me, but I don't think he wants to kill me yet." "This is insane." Michael had that look on his face, the one that told me he wanted to hit someone. "Cassie, are you even listening to yourself?" He turned to Briggs. "She's in shock." "She is standing right here," I said. But I didn't contradict the rest of Michael's statements. Given his ability to read people, I had to assume that he might be right. Maybe I was in shock. I couldn't deny the fact that my emotions were on lockdown. I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I wasn't even thinking about my mother and the fact that this unsub might very well have killed her too. "You kill women," I said out loud. "Women with red hair. Women who remind you of someone else. And then, one day, you see me. And for whatever reason, I'm not like the others. You never needed to talk to them. You never needed them to go to sleep at night thinking about you, but I'm different. You sent me a gift. Maybe you want to scare me. Maybe you're playing with me and you're using me or to play with the feds. But the way you wrapped that box, the care you took with my name on the card, there's a part of you that thinks you really have given me a gift. You're talking to me. You made me special. And when you kill me, that will have to be special too." Every single person in the room was staring at me. I turned to Dean. "Am I wrong?" Dean considered the question. "I've been killing for a long time," he said, slipping into the killer's mind as easily as I had, and each time it's a little bit less than it had been the first time. "I don't want to get caught, but I need the danger, the thrill, the challenge." He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, it was like the two of us were the only two people in the room. "You're not wrong, Cassie." "This is sick," Michael said, his voice rising. "There's some psycho out there fixating on Cassie, and you two are acting like this is some kind of game." "It is a game," Dean said. I knew Dean wasn't enjoying this, that looking at me through the killer's eyes wasn't something he would have chosen to do, but Michael only heard the words. He lunged forward and caught Dean by the front of his shirt. A second later, Michael had Dean pinned to the wall. "Listen to me, you sick son of a—" "Michael," Briggs pulled him off Dean. At the last second, Dean lunged forward and grabbed Michael, reversing the position and wedging his elbow underneath Michael's throat. Dean lowered his voice to a whisper. "I never said this was a game to me, Townsend. It was a game to the unsub. It was a prize. And if we weren't careful, Michael and Dean were going to kill each other." "Enough." Locke put a hand on Dean's shoulder. He stiffened, and for a second I thought he might hit her. "Enough," Dean echoed, expelling a breath. He let Michael go and took a step back. Then he just kept walking backwards until his back hit the opposite wall. He was a person who didn't lose control, who couldn't afford to, and he'd come close enough with Michael just now that it scared him. "So what do we do now?" I asked, pulling everyone's attention from Dean and giving him a second to recover. Briggs jabbed his index finger in my direction. "You're still not working on this case. Either of you." He spared a glare for Dean before returning that laser focus to me. "I've assigned a team to watch the house. I'll introduce you all to Agent Sturmans, Vance, and Brooks. Until further notice, none of you will be leaving this residence, and Cassie is never alone." Closing ranks around me wasn't going to bring us any closer to this unsub. "You should take me with you," I told Briggs. "If this guy wants me, we should use that. Set a trap." "No." Michael, Dean, and Briggs responded at the exact same time. I turned beseeching eyes to Agent Locke. She looked like she was on the verge of agreeing with me, but at the last second she bit her lip and shook her head. "This unsub has only made contact once. He'll try again, whether you're here or elsewhere, and at least here we have a home court advantage." I'd been taught that there was no such thing as a home court advantage, but my mother's lessons had been geared towards reading people, not playing cat and mouse with killers. "The unsub is breaking pattern." Locke reached out and touched the side of my face. "As scary as it is, that's a good thing. We know what he wants, and we can keep him from getting it. The more riled up he gets, the more likely he is to make a mistake." "I can't just do nothing." I locked my eyes onto my mentors, willing her to understand. "You can do something," she said finally. "You can make a list. Everyone you've spoken to, everyone you've met, every place you've been, every person who spent a second looking at you since you got here." My mind went immediately to the man who'd interrupted my reading that afternoon by the pop mag, without telling me his name. Was that him? Was it nothing? It was hard not to be paranoid given what I knew now. This unsub mailed the package, Leah pointed out, jarring me from my thoughts. He doesn't have to be local. Dean jammed his hand into his pockets. He'd want to see her, he said, his own gaze flicking towards my face just for a second. We weren't able to trace the package, Locke said grimly. But busy post office, busy day, less than observant mail clerk, and no security cameras. Our unsub paid cash, and the returning address is obviously fake. This guy is good, and he's playing with us. At this point, I wouldn't rule out anything.